Hi guys, in my last video I talked about what a typical homeschooling day might look like to start out, but I had some more thoughts and I forgot to tell you the most important thing. That video was getting kind of long, so I started this one, but you're going to want to watch this one because I forgot to tell you how to homeschool once you get started in the day. So, I want to make sure I get this done so that it goes with the other video, which is why I'm out here in the dark, which might mean that there will be maybe random cats or bugs or children. I don't really know, but we'll see how far we get here. Okay, so two things. In the last video about a homeschooling day, I talked about getting organized before the day starts, at least having some kind of an idea of what you want to do with that day. So I want to talk really quick about what happens if you don't have that idea. So say you had a horrible night, say you lost your notebook where you keep everything written down. You have a sick kid, and so you need to take care of one kid, but other kids are still bored and need something to do. Whatever it is. So ideally, if you don't have any plan for the day, you're going to sit down for 15 or 20 minutes by yourself and make a plan. Now that's in an ideal world, and usually if you're coming upon a day where you don't have any idea what you're doing, you don't usually have the luxury of taking time to yourself because whatever it is that, anyway, you don't have that luxury. So, next step, if you have the energy and the ability, you can ask the kids, hey, what do you guys want to learn today? What is one thing that you have always wanted to know? We're going to find out today. Doesn't matter what it is. It does not, and if you do this, go this route, it doesn't have to be schooly. You're not trying to fit it into a specific bucket. You're trying to, in this case, both get the day going in a way that is productive instead of stressful. And you're trying to kind of open up and see where your kids are at, what they're interested in, and what they're doing. So you don't need to steer any of this any particular way. So if a kid is interested in jelly beans, find out about jelly beans. How do they make jelly beans? I don't know. Let's look on YouTube. Or better yet, I don't know. How can we find out? And let the child say, hey, let's do this. Okay, so that's your first option. But that option only works if you have the time and energy to deal with a whole bunch of parent helped learning. The other option, if you have older children, is to tell them, hey, today your job is to find out something you've always wanted to know. Find it out, research it, tell me about it later. You can have them write it down. You can have, middle, slightly younger kids draw, however you want to handle that. If your kids are old enough to just follow their own rabbit trails, that is golden. That's all you have to do that day. Yeah, hi, I have a cat friend joining me here. If you do not have the bandwidth to handle that kind of a thing, then you do a documentary day. You do a reading day. So there's all these documentaries online. Have the kids pick one that they're interested in. If you want to make sure that you're doing school, ask them to tell you one thing that they learned from the documentary that they hadn't known before. But there are so many amazing documentaries online. I mean, this really is not a throwaway day, or at least we're going for not making it a throwaway day. They can learn a ton. Okay, so documentary day. Have a reading day. So your kids normally get dressed for school. Awesome. Today we're going to wear our pajamas and we're going to get a blanket and you guys are going to get your favorite books. And I would honestly recommend having them bring something to draw on, because especially if they're littler, just sitting and listening to books can get tiring. So having art that they can draw helps. And then just go through the books that they brought. Even older kids, my oldest kids still like to have chapter books read to them. So you kind of split off, read a chapter and then read a board book and then read, or if the weather is cooperating, that is the best. You have an outside day. If it is the first nice day of spring, if by some chance it is the first snow, oh, take that and use it. In fact, both of those days, you're not schooling anyway. Do not do school on those days. The first nice day of spring, everybody go outside. This is why you homeschool, so that you can just go out and enjoy it. Okay, so I'm getting a little off track again. What you're basically trying to do is come up with something that is structured enough to get you through the day. Because I'm not going to lie, if you don't do any school for this one day, you're going to be fine. But what's going to be stressful is feeling like you don't know what you should be doing. The kids are going to be out of whack. Maybe you have a routine of what you do for homeschool, you're not doing it. So this is to keep everybody kind of moving in a good direction emotionally and mentally, more than being like the best school day ever. But honestly, because it's different and relaxed, you probably are going to learn a lot of really cool stuff. But the main reason that this works is you're doing something out of the ordinary. So if every day at school is documentary day, you're not going to want to choose that, because when you're already starting your day off your game, you want something that is going to be different enough that the kids enjoy it and are involved in it. If they're already sick of watching documentaries, you don't want to pick a day that you're not organized. You don't want to pick that as your thing to have them do. So get creative with it. Think of something else that your kids would maybe enjoy doing for the day. If you do not even have the wherewithal to call it a documentary day, some days we just don't have it. Do what you got to do to get through the day. Put on Disney movies. It doesn't matter. Some days you literally just make it through. It's the same with anything, parenting, your job, being a student. Some days you just got to get to the end of the day and try again. That's okay. You will have days like that homeschooling. You really will. You will. Your kids will. That's okay. But the ideal is to kind of keep the day moving well. And so usually pulling out one of those, we don't usually do this all the time, but it's fun when we do it. Things can help you out a lot. Okay. As a segue, if you do not have anything organized, and you have to work, and you do not have any kind of time to babysit your kids watching documentaries, here's what you're going to do. And this is a huge important thing that I should have mentioned first thing in the first video, but I didn't, because this is how you actually get through the day. Okay, so we talked about you start the day. We talked about preparing for the day. This is how you actually get through the day. Okay, so you put on your documentaries, right? And you have to go to your conference call. And right in the middle of a conference call, one of your kids comes up to you and says, why do dolphins make that noise? Whatever it is that they just saw in the documentary. So, do you get off your conference call and go homeschool mom and tell them about dolphins? Do you know why dolphins make that noise? No, none of those things. So here is what you do. You say, and I quote, "That's a great question. Write it down." Okay? Always. That's a great question. Write it down. There's actually an even better answer that I'm going to talk about later. But for right this exact moment, all you need to worry about is, that's a great question. Write it down. Even very, very, very young kids can draw a picture of their question. And then you can come back to it later. Even through your homeschooling day. Okay, so say it's not a documentary day. Say you have all day to sit with your kids and learn, and that's great. But you have this agenda and you need to get to math and whatever, and your kid starts to ask all these questions and you don't know the answers. And what are you supposed to do? Because you're not even a teacher. So here's what you say. That's a great question. Write it down. And then later, I can talk to you about how to handle those questions. But as you're going through your day, that's a great idea. Write it down. So your kid's like, hey, I'm watching this documentary. I want to go to the aquarium. Whatever, that's a great idea. Write it down. Write it down. Go, child. Take control of your own education and write this down, because that's going to do multiple things for you. That is going to put the ownership back onto the child of what they're learning. Your job is to help your child learn, but it is not your job to be the learner. So that gives ownership back to the child. Okay, you are keeping track of what it is that you want to know. You're keeping track of what it is you want to do. It keeps your day moving. There are days when you can stop and follow every rabbit trail, and that's great. But especially if you're trying to work in homeschool, or if you're homeschooling 7 kids, you can't always chase down every idea, every question, every confusion. Even if it's math, So the kids working through their math. What's 7 plus 3? And they come and say, Mom, what does this sign mean? And they don't know what the plus sign is. Okay, write it down. Write it down. It's okay. You're going to handle it later. Some of the stuff, I'm not going to lie, you will never come back to. You probably should eventually come back to the plus sign. But some of the stuff that gets written down, I'm actually cleaning out my old homeschool stuff this week, in addition to making all of these videos. And I'm finding the best stuff. And some of it we never ever went back to, but the memories of what we did do are great. And it's really fun to look back to and see how many questions did eventually get answered. So there's 2 buckets of questions here, since I've gone on this, rabbit trail about questions with you all here. There's 2 kinds of questions. There's the kind that you need to come back around to. Like if it's math, when you're done with your conference call, check in and help them move forward with math, because they cannot continue to do their actual schoolwork. They won't be able to do math the next day. Or if you don't have time that day, that's fine. But before the next day, when you're doing your organizing, you're like, oh yeah, I'm going to have to sit down with them before they start that math. So then you sit down, you're like, hey buddy, what was your question? Oh, okay, you want to know what this sign means. Here's what it means. That's one bucket of questions. Things that you need to help them understand for their actual curriculum. The other bucket of questions is the more fun bucket. but it's also the don't stress about it bucket. So any of those questions that you personally can answer, fine, go ahead. Again, yeah, for now, fine, go ahead. That's great. If you do not answer every single question they ask you, it will be okay. And I'm going to actually talk more about the whole question thing and how to handle that probably in its own video, because it's a golden thing all by itself. This, I don't know, write it down. You're going to use it all the time, and it's how you're going to get through the day, especially if you're trying to work in homeschool. There are other things, I'm going to talk to you later about if kids aren't getting along or if kids just don't want to obey you. But if you're actually on track, the thing that will derail you is kids not understanding something, or kids being really excited and interested in something, and you don't know exactly how to feed that interest and keep going with the day. So you say, that's a great question. Write it down. So that's all for today, I think. I'm definitely going to need to talk more about the that's a great question thing. And I have some other things that I want to share with you later, but hopefully that was helpful to somebody, and I'll talk to you later.